Good morning and welcome to the third and final day of the Virtual Investor Conference. My name is Janine Thomas. I am CEO of JTC IR, and I will be the moderator for today's event. We've had a great schedule so far, and we're excited to bring Cyclo Therapeutics as our next presenting company. So with me is Scott Fine, Chief Executive Officer of Cyclo Therapeutics. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Janine. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
So Cyclo Therapeutics trades on NASDAQ under the ticker CYTH. We will go through a corporate presentation and then open it up for Q&A. Before we get started, Scott, since you're fairly new to this platform, I'd love to have you educate our audience on your background and why Cyclo Therapeutics for you as your next venture. And then we'll get into the presentation.
Sure. So, Janine, I spent 4 decades on Wall Street in the healthcare and consumer space as an investment banker, domestically as well as globally. I actually lived in Indonesia for 2 years with my family, advising a very large healthcare group there specifically and exclusively. But through my career, I identified multiple assets early on in the generic space back in the 80s, then in genetics as well as medical devices. Ironically, however, our most successful venture was Green Mountain Coffee, which we identified as a possible transaction. We helped fund it. We personally, meaning my family, personally lent the principal owner of the company money to support getting the IPO done. And then as the head of investment banking at a small firm called Guilford Securities, I actually took the company public at a post-money valuation of $26 million. And if anybody followed it, it was taken out at, I believe, $22 billion. About 20 years later, it became a very strong and, of course, an incredible return. And for full disclosure, we were there for a good part of the way, but not the whole way.
Got it. Well, great background. Cyclo Therapeutics is a special story. Can't wait for you to share it with our audience. So with that, we're going to start with you giving the story, and then we'll open it up for Q&A when we're done.
Great. Thanks, everyone. This is our forward-looking statement. I'm sure most of you have seen this in the past. Please read it at your leisure. What I want to focus on today, frankly, although we have 2 diseases that we're going after, Niemann-Pick type C, which is an ultra-rare disease. We have a phase 3 pivotal trial where we are currently opening sites globally and enrolling patients around the world. We also have been given that our study may proceed for a phase 2 clinical program for Alzheimer's, 2 very diverse diseases, and of course, different size and demographics of the patient population, but a lot of similarities to the disease. But what I want to talk about now, because we actually feel that we've now created what we had intended to do with the trapsol cyclo molecule, beta-cyclodextrin, in creating a platform technology where we believe we can have multiple shots on goal, not only for Niemann-Pick type C, which is our current and most strongest effort right now, but also Alzheimer's, but also looking at other indications. And I won't get too deep into this, but I'll openly tell this group that we are in discussions with other third parties that are looking at us from a partnership standpoint. We're looking and talking to people from a research standpoint of a collaboration with respect to combination therapies. And we also have a strong confidence and are being approached by research centers that want to utilize our science and our molecule for development programs of their own. So it's quite exciting as we see the landscape presenting itself for us for this year and for years to come. We have orphan drug designation for Niemann-Pick type C, not only in the United States, but also in Europe. We have fast track designation. And as many of you may understand the program, we do on the MPC program qualify for a priority review voucher or a PRV, which currently has a market value of approximately $100 million. We have a broad and diverse and very sophisticated management team. Lisa Kim's most recently joined us as our Chief Medical Officer. Mike Lishak joined us as Head of Regulatory, coming from Sanofi Genzyme. Russ Belden, our Acting Chief Commercial Officer, who's doing work for us, was 16 years at Genentech. And Lori McKenna-Gorski, as head of our global patient advocacy, has a deep reach into dealing with patients, patient advocacy groups around the world. And she's an incredible asset for our company, as are all of our management team. I'm going to talk a little bit about Niemann-Pick type C and our Transport MPC phase 3 study. MPC is a rare fatal genetic disorder. It affects 1 in 100,000 individuals in the United States or in the world. You can see the percentage of diagnosis based upon age and the median survival rates. It's a very debilitating disease. There are no US approved therapies at all. There is one EU approved therapy, miglustat, which is currently used off label in the United States. And I'll mention that insurance companies have paid between $30,000 and $50,000 a month for that therapy off label for the use of the drug in the United States. And I'll also point out that the drug is only treats the neurological manifestations of the disease. And this is important as we've attacked the disease through an intravenous route of administration with our drug, trapsol cyclo, going not only after the systemic manifestations of the disease and effects of the disease, but also the neurological effects of the disease. We believe the market opportunity is $600 million for MPC around the world, and those are in mature markets. And that's back off the work of the work that Russ Belden has done for us. looking at the markets and looking how payers will anticipate and accept as we bring our drug to market registration. This is a very interesting slide that will give you an idea of how our drug works. The cartoon above, if you will, the slide to the left shows a normal cell processing cholesterol with the MPC1 and MPC2 protein used as a carrier, if you will, allowing cholesterol into the cell. The cell is then processes the cholesterol and then it's excreted. The cartoon in the middle shows the cholesterol being stuck in the cells and it cannot be processed. The cartoon to the right shows a combination of trapsol cyclo also entering the cells, encapsulating the cholesterol and putting the cholesterol back into the system, thereby allowing for more normal cell function and organ function in the body. The slides below are very important. These are from our phase 1 US clinical trial, where we required a liver biopsy. And you can see at the baseline, the pictures to the left on each one of these 1,500 and 2,500 mg per kg slides, that the cells are chock full of cholesterol. After 14 weeks, you can see that the cholesterol has been scrubbed from the cells based upon the utilization of our drug. Again, very compelling, and it shows that we are bringing more normal cell processing to the cells with the use of trapsol cyclo. Our phase 1 study was a short study, 18 years and older, but what's important was after IV infusion, as I mentioned in the slide before, we required liver biopsies. We also required that there'd be a spinal tap draw of cerebral spinal fluid, and within hours of the infusion, we were able to see that our drug is getting into the brain. This is a very important factor because we get challenged on this constantly from competitors, as well as other individuals in the community that don't understand how this could happen because the drug is such a large molecule. But for the benefit of doubt, we've got unequivocal proof and data that supports the fact that our drug is getting into the brain through an IV route of administration. In our phase study 201, which was our European study, which was a 48-week study with patients age 2 and above, we saw 100% of our patients either were improved or were stable, which in this disease, stabilization is a win. And 88% of the patients, or 8 of 9 patients who completed the study, actually experienced clinically meaningful improvements in one or more of the clinical endpoints from the 17-domain MPC severity scale. This is, again, very compelling. And these are the data that we put together, that we went to the FDA and got our approval to stand up our phase 3 pivotal trial, as I said, which we're currently enrolling around the world. This is a snapshot of our trial. We're looking to enroll 93 patients, which is a large amount of patients for a study like this in a patient population that's, as I said, it's an ultra rare disease. We are currently looking at 23 sites across 9 countries. It's a 96-week trial with an interim analysis at 48 weeks. This is very important. As we talked with the regulators around the design of our clinical program and showed them our data, and with an anticipation that perhaps at 48 weeks, the study could be powered enough to show statistical importance that we could stop the study and go for market registration. However, in the event the data is not as robust as we hope it will be at that point in time, the agencies agreed with us that we would continue the trial for another 48 weeks to further power the trial to determine and help us get to an endpoint and to meet endpoints as to get our drug approved. We've picked a dose, 2,000 mg per kg, which is the mid-range between the 1,500 and the 2,500 we used in our phase 1 and our phase 2 studies. And we've agreed with the agencies on the primary and secondary endpoints and the exploratory endpoints to help us achieve approvability of our product based upon these endpoints. The competitive landscape is rather interesting. First, the most important factor for us is we've, as I said earlier, have determined that we are going after the systemic and neurological manifestations of the disease. Our competitive comrades, if you will, have gone after the neurological manifestations of the disease. This past year, we had 2 significant CRLs, complete response letters. One was issued to Orphazyme, and one was issued to Mallinckrodt, now owned by Mandos out of bankruptcy. And both of these companies are working with expanded access programs right now to represent data to the FDA and EMA to try to reposition themselves. However, we see ourselves as the leader with our phase 3, as the only active, advanced clinical program available for this patient population to treat and bring a standard of care treatment above miglustat, which is standard of care in Europe, and of course used off-label in the United States to help this desperate patient population. Alzheimer's disease and our phase 2 study. We're very excited about this, and we'll talk a little bit about it as I go through this. A lot of similarities with MPC, cognitive decline, elevated levels of tau, amyloid plaques. We all know the size of the market. It's very large, 5 million people in the United States, 6th leading cause of death. And it's irreversible progressive neurological disorder that slowly degrades memory. As I said, there's a lot of similarities between MPC and Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, progressive cognitive decline, premature death, clumsiness, gait disturbance, etc. And in many instances in the past, Niemann-Pick type C was actually called childhood Alzheimer's. we were approached to stand up a single patient compassionate use program for a late onset geriatric individual with Alzheimer's. We dosed this individual for 18 months with a monthly IV infusion of our drug. And not only per the mini mental state evaluation showed on the right, not only did we show disease stabilization, but we saw an improvement in the patient under this scale. What was also noted by the patient and the family was there was less volatility and greater word finding ability. This data and animal data that had been utilized by Dr. Flint Beal from Cornell, the former head of neurology at Cornell in New York, is the material that we put in front of the FDA that enabled them to give us the green light where our study may proceed for beginning recruitment and opening up our clinical program for Alzheimer's. We do anticipate standing up this trial this year, and we do anticipate enrolling our first patient in this year in this program. Very quickly, corporate overview. As of our last filing, we had 19.3 million in the bank. And if you look at our burn rate, we burn about $1 million a month. So I would let you extrapolate out, our cash position. We successfully, as many of you know, raised money just before Thanksgiving. And frankly, before we had another drop in the marketplace. So we believe that offering was well timed for us at this point in time. Investment summary. As I said earlier, we have now determined and are very comfortable in saying we have a platform technology not only we can utilize for the development of Niemann-Pick type C, an ultra rare disease and a truly desperate patient population globally, but also with respect to standing up our program for Alzheimer's. We, as I said, have begun discussions on multiple fronts, strategic, scientific, and corporate alliance with entities that are approaching us to potentially partner with us. For the benefit of doubt, and I need to say this, there's no assurance we're going to get any of these things done, but it's quite exciting for us as a company to have our science and our medicine recognized first, because that's what drives our company and drives our value. And we're excited about the potential future of some of these collaborations as we move forward. We're well funded and can get through multiple clinical and regulatory milestones this year. Again, we're a platform technology, and we have a seasoned management team that have been to this rodeo before, and we are all experienced in helping build out significant company platforms driven by science and medicine. I want to thank everyone for listening. I know this was a short presentation, but I'll be happy to answer any questions I can around the company. And if any of you have further scientific questions that we can answer under the public domain, of course, be happy to get you and put you in touch with Lisa Kims, our Chief Medical Officer, or for that matter, have you talk with Mike Lishak, our Global Head of Regulatory, whom I should have mentioned has an incredible relationship, not only with the FDA, but he interacts with them very well, as well as with the EMA. Janine, I'll pass back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Scott. Short, sweet, to the point, but very exciting. Love the Cyclo Therapeutics story. We are going to go to the Q&A portion of this discussion. So to ask a question, you just hit the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, type in your question, and we will get to as many as possible. We've had great participation so far, Scott, with our audience on questions. So you can expect some good questions here.
Great.
Okay. The FDA accepted your IND for your Alzheimer's disease program. What are your plans for that program?
Our current plans, as I said, is we are working right now to identify our CRO that will help us manage the program. And we're looking to identify clinical sites. We have a PI, a lead PI on the program. So our goal is to open up and get our program up on clinicaltrials.gov when we've stood it up, and to get our first patient in Alzheimer's this year.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned priority review for your MPC program. That could be a huge milestone for the company. When do you expect to receive that?
That's a good question. You receive the PRV upon market registration, so it won't be for some time, guys. And look, I'll put a milestone out there for everyone. To enroll an ultra rare disease like ours, the average enrollment period is 2 to 2.5 years. We've only started mid-year this past year, guys. So we would anticipate market registration a few years out, but upon market registration, as I said, we do qualify, and we believe the first in use as an active ingredient as a beta cyclodextrin, which is a mandate to get a PRV from the FDA. But it's going to be some time before we get it. But good question. Thank you.
Okay. Why have you not released enrollment updates for the MPC trial?
We've just determined that it's not in our best interest to talk about how many patients are in or not in our trial at this point in time. We want to give good data points to the patient population when we have them. I mean, as many of you know that invest in the biotech space, it's intermittent when we can release data, and we want to be sensitive around that. So when we have something that's material that we believe we should tell the marketplace, we will. But right now, we're just not going to start listing numbers 1 to 10 to 30 to 50. It's not something we want to do.
Yeah, and that's normal course of business for a lot of biotech companies. I mean, just giving when they start, when they complete enrollment. So that makes sense, Scott. Okay. What steps have you taken, if any, in order to obtain grants, federal or state, for your Alzheimer's program?
That's another good question. Um, I will say that we are looking at non-dilutive funding on many fronts at this point in time, and I'll leave it at that. But great question. We are looking at non-dilutive funding through grant type of vehicles as well. It's a
I
good
told you,
question.
we've got great questions. We've got
Yeah.
a great audience with good questions here. What will Cynthia Lemier's role be in the Alzheimer's program?
That's a really good question. Cindy Lemier is a Harvard-based a researcher focused on dementia. She's a world's leader. If you look at her bio and look at who she currently advises, I mean, I'll give you one example. She's on the advisory board for Biogen, and she looked at our data, she looked at our program, and she joined our company as a senior advisor to our company. She is going to help us guide our program, guide us to other KOLs, guide us to clinical trial sites. But also, she's very interested in looking at the molecule for other dementia indications as well. So it's very broad scoped, her field of utilization with respect to her knowledge. But we're quite excited. And I will tell you, she already has us in discussions right now with other leading KOLs around the world who are frankly household names in the dementia space. It's quite exciting for us, actually, and quite rewarding with respect to the fact that we took a decision to invest in this, to do this single N of one patient program. As many of you may know, we have a patent pending for the Alzheimer's program that we're quite excited about. It's very powerful in our opinion. So we're looking at truly building out the Alzheimer's program on many different fronts, and Cindy will be a senior part of that leadership team to help get us there.
Yeah, her background is incredible. I urge everyone to look
Jeannie,
up.
maybe I should embellish more because
Yeah.
what you just said is true. I think it's really important that people that look at our company, whether it's my background, which I'm humbled by the fact that of whom I'm surrounded by, but if you do look at in Google and look at some of the people that are involved with our company and remain involved with our company, as we've built it since we got involved in 2014 and began standing up the clinical program for MPC, it's quite compelling. And you have to ask yourself, I mean, these aren't people that needed to look for jobs. These are people that truly looked at our science. And again, it's most important. You need to drive the science and the medicine first. Management of these companies, in my opinion, while I think it's important, it doesn't really drive the value. It's the science and medicine that drives our value. And the folks that have joined our company, whether from the scientific advisory board, management with Lisa Kims, or Cindy joining us with respect to, these are people that have looked under the hood and they put their names and reputations on our company and with our company because they believe we have something that can benefit mankind from a health and human resource viewpoint. And it's very humanistically driven with respect to helping patients.
Excellent, Scott. Okay, we do have time for a couple more questions. You said you have a platform technology. What are your plans for expanding the pipeline?
So as I said, and I need to preface this, guys, there's no assurance any of this is going to come to fruition, but we are now being approached by third-party research centers who want to collaborate with us using our science in collaboration with them. We're not going to get into the various disease categories that they're talking to us about, but we are in active discussions with other research centers to expand the platform and to expand our portfolio so that, as the slide said, we can have multiple shots on goal. And again, we already feel that we've diversified strongly enough, one in an ultra rare disease for Niemann-Pick type C, and of course for Alzheimer's as well. We have two clinical phase assets in our program. And I have to note, with a valuation of sub 40 million, if even in today's debacle of a market, and I'm sure all of you are fully aware, we're living in a bear market in the biotech space. I mean, you can't pick up a periodical in the biotech space that doesn't show where stocks have been beaten to death, if you will. We've been beaten down as well. We're not happy about it, but it is what it is. And we believe we'll be coming out of this market as values get identified. We still believe our valuation is so demonstrably undervalued from a comparable standpoint that we don't get any recognition for either one of our clinical phase assets at this point in time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. Have you started to apply for patents for any other indications?
I cannot comment about that. Sorry. I wish I could.
Okay. All right. We have time for one more question. What is your vision for Cyclo Therapeutics? Do you think you will be acquired by Big Pharma?
So my vision is my history, guys. I have a knack, if you want to call it that, or of identifying undervalued assets. We felt we identified an undervalued asset first and foremost for my family because it was myself and Marcus Seeger, our chairman of the board. Marcus, by the way, is the CEO of a $3 billion revenue company called Pol Pharma, which is a privately held generic and biosimilars business based in Warsaw, Poland. And Marcus and I made the first investment to begin to build out Cyclo Therapeutics as a pharmaceutical biotech development company. So we believe we can build this asset standalone, but we also understand that identifying value for our shareholders is important. But I want to be very clear, at a $40 million valuation to protect our shareholders, we don't want to give this company away. We believe we're building a large platform. We believe we should have a multiple much higher than where it is, specifically not only for NPC, as I'd said, a phase 3 late stage asset, but also for Alzheimer's. And we believe, and we've experienced this, time will tell, but markets and valuations generally catch up to where they should be. So we think either stand alone or partnering with someone, our value will inevitably be identified, provided we continue to deliver on the science, the medicine, and the management.
Wonderful. Well, that concludes our presentation with Cyclo Therapeutics. Scott, so grateful for your time and coming back on the virtual investor platform. Exciting times for Cyclo Therapeutics, and your enthusiasm, your commitment to this company just is seeping through every pore. So thank you so much for the presentation today.
Janine, thanks for inviting me to your conference, and everyone that participated. Thank you for listening, and I hope I answered as many questions as I could. Take care, everyone.
You did. Thank you. As a reminder, Cyclo Therapeutics trades on NASDAQ under the ticker CYTH. I want to give a special thank you to our audience. Great questions, great participation. We do have additional companies, exciting companies presenting the rest of the day. Visit our website at virtualinvestorco.com. Thank you all and have a great day.
Thanks, Janine. Bye, everyone.